What's going on YouTube? I just want to take a minute here and talk with you about cryptocurrency. I've had a lot of people ask me in the past about how to get started, how to get in, what's the best things to buy. And that's a really loaded question, so I wanted to get on here and make a video the best way I know how, and how my current strategy is going to look in the current crypto climate. Obviously Bitcoin is a good bit off from its all-time high in November, kind of hovering around $20,000 right now. And in my opinion, that's a pretty good time to get in. But in this video, I want to address something different than just a regular buy and hold strategy. We're going to talk more about swing trading. I want to talk a little bit more about cryptocurrency if you're unfamiliar with it, and just kind of how the market works and some things to avoid and just some best practices to go about. So here we go. So if you're familiar with cryptocurrency, or if you're not, you've probably heard about Bitcoin. And last year it got up to, what is this, $67,000. Pretty incredible for something that is relatively new. It launched in 2009, and people don't quite understand it yet. And there's a lot of talk about it in business and in government. You've got people trying to regulate it because a lot of money's been made off of it. At one point, I think it was worth $3 trillion market cap wise, 1.27 trillion. So not quite, but the overall crypto market, I think, was $3 or $4 trillion at the time. So a lot of money pumping into this. And if you look at this chart, it only goes back to 2013, but typically crypto moves in a 4-year cycle. And obviously 2013 is 4 years from 2009 when Bitcoin launched, if you're any good at math. And you can see, at one point, I think Bitcoin was less than $1, and then it started going up and it shot up quite a bit to over 1,000, and then tanked quite a bit and just kind of traded sideways for a while. Then there was another peak in 2017. Imagine if you got in, down here. A lot of people thought that was crazy, but look what happens here. You could have 30x your money, I think. And then it dropped again, as it does. And I think lost 80% of its value, maybe. Traded sideways for a few years, and then last year had another peak. Actually had 2 big peaks here, and then tanked again, and this is where we're at currently. And it's kind of hovering around the $20,000 level. And in my opinion, it's a pretty good time to get in, I think. Because you see this peak here, we're kind of holding that level here. That would be called support. This would be called resistance, but I'm not going to talk about that too much in this video. But I think, it's a pretty good time to get in. We're holding levels. It could drop some more, as this did here, about a year after the peak. So we've not quite hit the year on the peak yet. So, it's best to be careful, but I think it's a good time to consider getting in the market, and I'll talk more about that later. But crypto, there's a ton of cryptocurrencies out there, and it's easy to get lost in the weeds. I mean, there's thousands of these, literally, and most of them are just speculative. They're just kind of there. People can make cryptocurrencies if they have the know-how. I do not, so I'm going to stay away from that. And some of these are useful. Some of them are not. And like Dogecoin, I don't know if it's got a whole lot of utility, but it made quite the spectacle in 2021, I believe it was. We'll look at that. I mean, it was worthless, 0.002 cents. I actually bought in at 0.082 cents. And within a few days, it went up 10x and then dropped a little bit. So I got some more, I think at 2 or 3 cents. And then, a few weeks or months later, it shot up all the way to 70 cents. And I was hoping it would hit $1, and it didn't. And so I got out at, I think, 55 cents, turned $95 into, I think, $2,100 or so. A lot of people saw it shooting up like this and were thinking it was going to the moon. And they bought in maybe at 30 or 50 or even 70 cents, and the thing tanks. And all of a sudden, they're out a lot of money. And it was kind of foolish. These things don't go on forever. And at some point, it had what is this, 80 billion? That's as high as I can see, $80 billion market cap. People get euphoric and think this thing is just going to go on and on and on. And it has to stop out somewhere. And people see, this thing's still only at 70 cents. Like, what if it got to, the 20 or whatever, $60,000 mark that Bitcoin did? That's what a lot of people had in their heads with a lot of these cryptocurrencies. They're so cheap. What if it gets the same price as Bitcoin down the road? And it won't, because you have to look at the market cap. This has an 80-something billion market cap at the time. Well, there's 132 billion Dogecoins. And so even if it got to $1, that's $132 billion. I think it was more than that at the time. Same with Shiba Inu. Look at this, 549 trillion Shiba Inu tokens. And people are thinking, oh, it's going to $1. I'm going to be rich. Well, that would be $549 trillion. I think that's more value than the whole entire United States. So it's just kind of ridiculous what people have in their minds. And so I wanted to address that in this video, because basically none of these are ever going to reach the level that Bitcoin does, because Bitcoin has a limited supply, and eventually they're going to start tapering it off. I think they may have stopped making more, I'm not sure, but I think it will eventually start going down in the supply, and so the value will start going up. They call it digital gold because it's a store of value. Now, it does fluctuate in price a good bit, but down the road, a lot of people think the price will only go up. And if you look at the chart, that's what's happened. All-time high, or you look at this chart here over its lifespan, it's done nothing but go up. Sure, it's down now, but these levels here could look like this in the next 4 years. You never know. And so that's the power of cryptocurrency. And so I think it's a good thing to get into. Personally, I'm invested long-term in some projects. Some of them I'm up on, some of them I'm down on. But I'm going to talk more about my strategy currently with swing trading. And so what I've done here, this is CoinMarketCap. It hosts all of the cryptocurrencies on the market. I don't know if you can buy and sell here, but it does give you all the information about, supply, selling volume, etc. It has these numbers here. It ranks them in their market cap order. So obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum's number 2, Tether, USDT. It's a stable coin, so it stays at $1. In this strategy I'm doing, I was looking at volume, what people have been buying a lot recently, and so I went with Ethereum Classic because it's something I'm familiar with, and it had a good amount of volume at the time. Right now it's kind of down, but I'm not sure where it was at the moment, but I think it was up higher here. And Ethereum Classic, I think, is a branch off of Ethereum, the regular Ethereum, which has a lot of updates coming up. There's a lot of buzz about it because I think even next week it's got a major change coming that'll make it more efficient, more affordable to trade and build off of. So there's a lot of excitement around that. And so a lot of times when Ethereum moves, Ethereum Classic moves as well. Sometimes even more because it's cheaper. It's more accessible for people. So this was 20% in the last 7 days versus Ethereum. And so I decided I'm going to try to swing trade this. And so if you look at this Ethereum Classic chart here on my KuCoin account, I recommend Binance. I just didn't use that for this, but if you are interested in more advanced trading, Binance is a good account to have. And so in this strategy, I'm swing trading. So that's basically, buying at a good point. And when it goes up, you sell. If it goes down, buy again. and then sell higher. And you don't want to hold for a long time, just a few days. So you want to catch moves when, whenever they get to support levels. It's like, hey, it hit here, it went back down. I'm going to buy it because it seems to be holding, and then it goes up. So that is what I did here. Let me get to where I bought at, so I can kind of show you the chart and my thought process. I bought in around 33, I think 15 or so on August 29th and sold up here. And so I'm just going to map that out real quick. 33, let's just go with that and put it around here. That's about where I sold. I actually bought it a few days prior and it went up, and I didn't sell here. I sold a little bit lower, made, a little bit of profit. But here I bought in and just kind of waited because it was holding, this support level pretty well. So I decided to get back in, and it shot up a week or so later, and I made 25%. Now, I won't show you how much money I put into it, but let's say you wanted to put in, $1,000. Well, 25% of 1,000 is $250. So in a week's time, you could have made $250 just by sitting there, basically. And I was actually thinking about getting back in after it tanked here. And, I could have bought in again at 33 something and sold again at 40, another 20%. So in just, let's say, 2 weeks' time, I could have had 45%. 45% return on my investment. That is pretty good. And that's the power of cryptocurrency. You're hard pressed to do that in the stock market, especially if you're trading stuff like, Apple or some of these well-established companies with trillion-dollar market caps. They don't move as much, which in a way is good because they're not as volatile. You won't lose as much, but you won't gain as much either. And so here, you can gain a lot of money. You can also lose a lot of money. And so in these strategies, for swing trading, I like to put in my buy order. And then once that order is in, I put in a stop loss, which is why I recommend Binance or KuCoin, because you can't do this on Coinbase or Robinhood or any of these applications. They're a little more basic, but here you can put in a stop market order to sell at whatever price level you want. And so I recommend doing it a little bit lower than support, because if it's going to break this level, it's probably going to go back down a bit. So you don't want to lose, 20% on this trade. You want to lose maybe 10 or maybe 7. I don't know. Whatever this would be. If you get in here, well, that's kind of hiding. I can't see it now. But, you risk less than 10% ideally to make 25%. And that guarantees you not to blow all your account. This is what professional traders do, and this is why they're profitable. It's because they manage risk. And that's super important. You don't want to, if I were trading $1 million, I don't want to just put $1 million order in and all of a sudden it's down 20, 30% in a few days, and I'm down, $200,000, $300,000, when I could risk $100,000 and make $250,000, etc. So it's very important to manage your risk, put in a stop loss. It's why I recommend going with a more advanced platform. And when you trade like this, swing trading, if you can make even 10% a week, that ends up being 500% in a year's time, which is pretty amazing. And if you're putting in, $1,000, making 10% a week, that's $100 a week. That's $5,000 a year. And when you're growing that over time, you just turned that $1,000 into $5,000. Now, if you can make 10%, that's $500 a week. In the next year, you're making, what is that, $25,000? Yeah, something like that. 26,000. So that's the power of compounding, and that's the power of cryptocurrency. You can make good gains here and manage your risk, because if you're just going to hold this long term, I mean, sure, maybe if you can buy cheap, you can make some decent money. This here at $12.96, yeah, it's 252% made in 43 days. That's actually really good. So sometimes, if you want to trade longer, that's fine, but you want to take profits over time. But for me, I like doing the swing trading strategy of just going a few days and making consistent profits, because that's how you grow your account. If you're holding for months on end, and if you bought here and it went up a little bit, but then you didn't sell and now it's down here, well, you're kind of up the creek without a paddle, I guess. But if you can buy and sell on these swings, you can grow your account a lot. So that's my strategy. If you're interested, there's a lot more videos out there on swing trading. This is just to whet your appetite a little bit. There's a lot more to this strategy if you're unfamiliar. Things like support and resistance, some different things that you might want to learn. But this is basically an introduction, something to help you get started. But most importantly, you want to educate yourself. And maybe I'll put some more videos out in the future talking, going a little bit more in depth into this stuff. But there's also a lot of videos out there on YouTube about how to swing trade and some of the more fundamentals of trading. So this is how I'm approaching the markets right now. I do have some long-term holds, and I do think right now is a pretty good time to start buying up stuff for long-term holds. But this is just to show you there's a lot of potential out there in cryptocurrency. And it's not that difficult if you're willing to risk some money. So if this is helpful to you, like, comment if you want. Also message me if you got any questions, or leave a comment. I'm always willing to answer questions and try to help people out as much as I can. So we'll see you next time, and be blessed.